Okay, where is Justin? Right here. Well, actually, right here. Justin's attorney right here.
All chairs over here for the jury. So we're going to use the 5 or 6 that are there, and let's use.
We could probably put one up here. Can we do one up here and then go to the second row?
Yeah, you want to take your desk over there, your chair.
Is that going to squeeze you too much,
And,
Brian? We move down just a little bit.
Do you want the desks out of the way, probably?
And line up your chairs real nice.
Back there, you need a big bench for this stuff.
The judge can be right here.
Okay, now, you're going to have to grab a chair close by and sit down.
Now we have our state attorney here.
State attorney. Hey, state attorney. State attorney. State attorney.
Okay, state attorney.
These are nice chairs. Thanks. So we have bailiff and clerk here.
Okay, bailiff.
Bailiff, clerk.
I need to share the witness over there.
What are you?
Then I would suggest maybe for this, so that it looks kind of nice with the 12 of them over there, maybe one of our bailiffs and clerk, the bailiff and the clerk can do the same. They can do both parts.
Okay.
Will that work?
So, how about Tino? You want to also be the family doctor? You're going to have carry 2 roles.
Well, is that him? Yeah. Okay. You want to be the family doctor? Okay, you can both sit back there. Well, no, that isn't gonna work. I'll have the clerk be the bailiff and clerk, because what he'll do is he'll go back and he'll get the witnesses and bring them up, then he can just swear them right in. It just goes on and on here. Are we all on?
Dan, do you want these?
Yes, please, I'll swap you. Get started here in a second. I'll swap you. These are the postcards you can send him and the handouts. My name is Barb Knudsen. Good morning. And I'm here from the Walls Foundation, standing for Wheeling Academy of Law and Science. This is, believe it or not, the 9th year that I've been in the school, so it's the 9th year I came to Steenrod, and it was actually in Steenrod, our very first year, that we had the press take a picture. I'll never forget, because our script was about Cinderella. Normally, my base is Ohio County, so normally I went into all the 4th grade classes and all the 8th grade classes. The scripts for 4th graders were always written in the form of a fairy tale. And the 8th grade script was different, and it was a little bit, stronger in content. This year, based on 25 per class, we will be celebrating 10,000 participating students over these 9 years, which is a lot of students. And I've been in 11 counties in West Virginia so far. I've been to the upper part of the state, which is up in Hancock Brook County, been down to Marshall County, Wetzel County, Tyler County, Kanawha County. I've been to Jackson County, which is where Ripley, West Virginia is. And then I received an additional grant that took me into 8 additional counties, and 4 of those counties were what we call economically distressed counties. Anybody have any idea what that might mean? Yes?
They're having problems with financial issues.
Yes, that's excellent. And it was a very rewarding experience. I was in Braxton, Clay, Barber, and McDowell counties. Very rewarding experience. Everyone was so thankful that we took the program down there, and it was a lot of fun. Tomorrow, I will bring a lawyer with me. The lawyer is Sherry McPhail. Is her son in this class?
She's
In the other class? Okay. So the lawyer will be Sherry McPhail, and the lawyer will play the role of the judge. So I have a robe and a gavel for the judge. So when we have our bailiff is the one that keeps order in the courtroom. The bailiff is the one that goes, when the witnesses are called, the bailiff normally goes out of the courtroom because the witnesses would not be sitting in the courtroom in a real court case before they told their story. They would be out in the hall or down the hall. So once their name is called, the bailiff leaves the courtroom, goes out and gets them, brings them in, brings them up to the clerk, and the clerk swears them in, all right? So in this case, when the name is called, and we'll do a little bit of a rehearsal at the end here today, the bailiff will go back and escort the witness up in front of the clerk, and you will swear them in. The bailiff is the one that keeps charge in the courtroom. And it's different in different counties also. In a Hyde County Circuit Court, the bailiff actually stands. The last case I went to, the bailiff stood the whole time, and the bailiff wore a uniform. But then when I went over to a civil case in Ohio, the bailiff had on a suit and tie, and the bailiff sat the whole time. So things like that can be a little bit different. So the clerk is the one that marks things for evidence. If, let's say, there was a bloody boot that was actually evidence in this case, at some point the clerk would be the one that would mark that as evidence. The clerk is also the one that swears the witnesses in. Every witness comes up to this stand, this witness chair, and before they do, they have to go to the clerk and they have to swear to tell the truth, all right? So that's the clerk's responsibility. Court reporter, very, very important role. The court reporter is the one that keeps track of every word that goes on in a courtroom. Those are very good jobs, and it's a very important task. I always talk to the jurors about how important their role is. Actually have the most important role in this whole process, which I'll talk to you about in a few minutes. The state attorney in this case represents the state of West Virginia. Could be one attorney, could be two attorneys. But all the responsibility and the burden is placed on the state attorney because it's up to this person to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, okay? They have to prove their case so that there's just a reasonable doubt in your minds. It is not up to, where's my attorneys here? Okay, it is not up to the defense attorneys to prove that their defendants did not do this crime, okay? It is strictly up to the state attorney to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's one of the reasons that the state attorney always sits closest to the jurors, because it's a psychological edge that he's sitting there, okay? So now we have our defendants. And in this case, we have two defendants. We have Alex and we have Justin. In 2007, when we started writing our scripts about prescription drugs, that problem of abusing prescription drugs was new, brand new. Here's actually an article I pulled from the internet that said Generation RX, calling the teenagers Generation RX, standing for prescription drugs. And it said a new study reveals a brand new category of substance abuse emerging. Teens abusing prescription drugs intentionally to get high. That was in 2007. In 2011, I'm here to tell you that prescription drug abuse is an epidemic among our youth today. What's an epidemic? An epidemic. Saying, come on, I know you know this one. Think hard. If something is an epidemic, what do you think?
It's a problem.
Yes, it's a big problem. It's an epidemic. So we've gone from this substance abuse just emerging in 2007 to a very, very serious problem. West Virginia has been named #1 in the entire country for prescription drug abuse. And that's not a statistic we want to be proud of, right? It's everywhere, but West Virginia, we have a big problem. And that's one of the reasons that we try to come in here and we try to talk to you and we try to warn you about the dangers. Prescription drug abuse can be several things. One of the things is you get a pill bottle and it has the doctor's name on it, has your name on it, it says take 1 pill a day. Well, that means take 1 pill a day. That doesn't mean 2 or 3 or 4, because what can happen is your body can become addicted to these prescription drugs. Who knows what addicted means? Addicted, what do you think?
You can't stop.
You can't stop. I mean, addiction could be to anything. Because usually if a case goes to trial, it's a couple of years after the incident happened. So, you know, the media, you know how the media is, you know, gets on a case and they can sway you one way or the other. So you've seen it on TV, you've heard it on the radio, you've seen it in the newspaper, your friends have been talking about it. So the judge will want to know, you know, what do you know about this case? And if you raise your hand and say, well, I saw last night in the paper that the case was going to start today, that's probably okay. The fact that he didn't come up doesn't mean one thing or the other. You jurors cannot base that decision that they did or did not come up to the stand on your decision, okay? So then we have our witnesses, which I said would not normally be in the courtroom. So we have Dr. 1, who's Dr. 1, Dr. 2, Ace, and the officer, okay? So these are witnesses, and it's up to the jurors to listen to what the witnesses say, and that's how they will base their decision. And it's really not as easy as what you think. Everything that's done in the courtroom is done for the sake of the jurors so that you can come up with a verdict. Who knows what a verdict is? Yes, in the back row. Yes.
It's like our decision of if we think someone's guilty or not. Like
Yes, it's your decision. And in a criminal case, it's guilty or not guilty. What are the other kinds of cases? There's another type of a case. Not a criminal case. What is it? Yes.
A civil case?
Yes, very good. And a civil case is always about money. It's suing somebody for money. This is pretty much how it's set up. How many have seen these things on TV? Okay, how many have seen Judge Judy? Of course, everybody. Okay, this is not like Judge Judy because this involves our jury, okay? So, basically, this is the way a courtroom would be set up. Your jurors would be on one side, your bailiff and your clerk, and then on one side or the other would be the judge's chambers, all right? And then in the back, in the back would be the room for you all. Would be the room for the jurors where they go to deliberate. It's a very plain room, nothing, real exciting. It's table, chairs, maybe some water. When they go back to their room, the jury foreperson is, okay, you're the jury foreperson. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to ask them to raise their hand, how many think, we have several questions on, guilt, innocence, that type of thing. And you will ask them to raise their hand. More than likely, you're not all going to agree in the beginning. So what are you going to do? You're going to talk about it. You're going to discuss it. You're going to argue about it. I've heard lawyers say they've heard chairs banging back there because after a while, you really, once you've come up with your opinion, you really are trying to convince the others to go your way. So you may start out with 6 and 6. 6 people might think one way, 6 might think another. And eventually, after you've talked about it and discussed it, let's say you get to 11 and 1. Is that unanimous? No, it's not unanimous. So you've got to try to convince, the 11 people need to try to convince the one person. Now, if you are that one person that disagrees, you do not have to surrender your opinion just because everybody's putting some peer pressure on you. What's peer pressure? Yes, what do you think?
Somebody wants you to do something that you want.
Yeah, and it's usually among your peers, which would be among your classroom, your classmates. So you'd be back there in the room, and everybody, all those 11 people could be saying to you, come on, we need to go home. Come on, I got to get out of here. I got to go pick up my child at daycare. You do not surrender your opinion because everybody else is thinking one way. However, it's very important that you remember this because I've been in a lot of classrooms and I've been out with the jurors. You need to listen with an open mind. You need to listen to what the reasoning is that those 11 people are thinking that way. That does not mean you have to change your mind, but don't just be opposite to be opposite, okay? We all know somebody like that who just is bound and determined, I'm not agreeing with you all, it doesn't matter what you say. So you don't want to just be stubborn about it. You need to listen with an open mind. And if you truly believe something opposite, that is your opinion, and that is the way that you should vote, okay? So you would come out of the jury room, and the jury foreperson will read the verdict, all right? And let's say that you were back there in the real courtroom for 2 hours. So you're back there for 2 hours, and you come out, you fill in your same places that you're in now, and you come out, and the judge would say to the jury foreperson, you haven't reached your unanimous verdict yet. He would say, have you reached a verdict? And he would say, no, Your Honor. The very first thing that he's probably going to do is send you right back in that room because he or she, the judge, really wants his case to be over. Now, if you cannot come up with unanimous verdicts, does anybody have any idea what that's called? That means you can't all agree. So what do you think happens? Yes.
A hung jury.
Yes. Boy, these guys are really, you're all prepared very well. Okay? So it's a hung jury, it's a mistrial, so that means nothing happens, all right? So the case could be tried again, but the jurors who have sat in on this case, they're dismissed. They're done. Their job is finished. They are paid right now in the state of West Virginia. Guess how much a juror might be paid a day? Anybody want to guess on that one? What do you think?
500.
No, that would be great, and I wish that I could be called if it were 500, a lot lower.
75.
No, that's pretty good. It's $40 a day. $40 a day is what jurors are paid. And you, as a student, might think, well, that's pretty good. But as an adult, it's not that much money. And the thing of it is, it's our civic duty to want to sit as a juror. I would love to sit as a juror. I think it would be very, very exciting. So it's not about the money. Who do you know that's on a side, okay? So, because if you know the state's attorney or your parents know the state's attorney and you're friends with them, you're probably not going to sit on that jury, right? Because you're going to have a biased opinion. Or if you know anybody over here on this side, the defendants or their lawyers. So that's all the judge wants to know. Who do you know and how do you know him? And then he will make the decision on whether you can sit on that jury panel. Once the voir dire process is over, the lawyers and the judge go to the judges' chambers and they decide who these 12 jurors are going to be. Right before the trial, so this would be the first day of the trial, so you jurors would have received a postcard a couple weeks ago. And the postcard would have said on there for you to call a particular number the night before the trial was supposed to happen. So it would have been last night, like after 5 o'clock, you would have called the number that's on the postcard, and you would have heard a recording that would have told you whether this case will go on today or it had been settled. 95% of cases that are filed never go into a courtroom. They are settled beforehand. What that means is the lawyers got together and they talked about it and they worked out a deal that made both sides a little bit happy, so they didn't have to go and bring this case to a trial by jury. So that's what would have happened. You would have received this postcard, so obviously the case is on today. You all came in to see if you were going to be picked, but it wasn't just you 12 jurors. It could have been 20 potential jurors, or 30 people, or 40 people. The last case I went to observe, there were 50 people that were called in, and they were going to pick 12. So the clerk has like this little bingo wheel, and the clerk pulled out 12 names, okay, out of those 50 people that came in, and those 12 people sat in these seats, and they're going to go through the process, the voir dire process. But do you have any idea what that means? Voir dire process, yes.
To tell the truth.
It means to tell the truth, and all very basic questions. Okay, first of all, let's back up a minute, and I want to tell you the last case that I mentioned, there were supposed to be 50 people that were coming in to be jurors, okay? Well, they did a roll call, just like you probably do in the morning, and 3 people were not there. Do you think the judge was happy about that? No, the judge was not happy about that. The judge said to the clerk, I want you to cite and fine those 3 people up to $1,000. Project is twofold. First of all, it's to show you how the justice system works. You actually bring the justice system to life by playing a role. And I've been doing this for so many years, I probably some of the 8th grade students that I started out with 9 years ago, they're actually sitting on the jury now. But what's interesting is I see you in the 8th grade, and of course the first question I'm going to ask you is, who remembers the mock trial in the 5th grade? And you are more than likely going to remember the role that you played a lot better than if your teacher or I were to stand here and tell you this is what a bailiff does, this is what a clerk does, this is what a witness does. So the idea is to show you how the justice system works. We're going to have a lot of fun with it, but most importantly, it's to talk to you about the topic of our trials. And in this case, it's prescription drug abuse, substance abuse, and this is the 4th year that we have written scripts about prescription drug abuse, okay? I know you took your pretest, and some of the questions on that pretest that you may not have known before the answer was to tell you that it is illegal to give prescription drugs to somebody else, to give your prescription drugs to somebody else, and it is illegal to take someone else's prescription drug. The mother of the 19-year-old who has also died, and they talked about the prescription drug abuse. She, you're probably too young, maybe your teacher saw some interviews of her. She looked pretty bad. She looked very, very high, and it's a very, very sad story. But she also had this boyfriend, and his name was Howard Stern. And they couldn't figure out how did she get all these prescription drugs? Surely one doctor did not give her all these prescription drugs, so was there a doctor prescribing drugs to her boyfriend, knowing that she was a drug addict and he was giving them to her? That's called enabling. You know what I mean? The two doctors and the boyfriend were on trial last year, not for murder. She was a drug addict. She took her own prescription drugs by her own will. But enabling, they were finding ways to give her drugs knowing that she was a drug addict, and that is wrong, okay? So we hear about the celebrities because they're always on the TV and so forth. And then another one that was soon after that was Heath Ledger. Anybody know he played the Joker in Batman? He was 28 years old when he died. And what they said is they found a few prescription pill bottles next to his body. And so I waited to see what the results were, and it came out in the newspaper. And his father made a statement. He said, while no medications were taken in excess, that means he didn't take a lot of these pills, we learned today the combination of doctor-prescribed drugs proved lethal, that's deadly for our boy. Heath's accidental death serves as a caution to the hidden dangers of combining prescription medication. June day, and I was flying to the West Coast, first time flying to the West Coast. I got stuck in Minneapolis for like 7 hours with the delay. And I kept hearing something on TV, which was back over in the corner. It was just a beautiful day, not like today. And I was watching the planes come and go, and they kept making a fuss on the media. I never caught the name about, something had happened to somebody. Next thing I know, they rushed somebody to the hospital, and then I heard them declare that somebody had died, and he was too young, and so I went over, curiosity got me, went over to the TV, and that's when they just announced that Michael Jackson had died. One of the very first interviews was a family friend who got on there and said, I've been warning the family about Michael Jackson's prescription drug abuse. However, there were other things that he abused. He abused prescription drugs, he abused the illegal drugs, and he died from that injection propofol, okay? He was given an injection propofol that should never have been given in a home. It should have been, the propofol is something that you get before you have surgery that pretty much knocks you out. So I just want you to take a minute to think, how bad of shape was this young man in that he had to, first of all, he paid the doctor, they paid the doctor $150,000 a month to take care of him. Well, which obviously he didn't do a very good job of taking care of him. And he demanded that he give him this propofol. He took propofol 6 nights a week for 2 months before he died. That's amazing. He basically had to be knocked out almost every single night. So I have the coroner's report of Michael Jackson's death, and I remember when I got it, I went upstairs, there's a law firm upstairs, and I went and got the drug book, and was looking up some of the names of some of the drugs that he had taken that were in his system, and because you couldn't pronounce them. And of course it doesn't make any sense, because you've got one pill that's a stimulant that peps you up, because you've been knocked out, so now you have to get all pepped up right in the morning, and then you need another drug to make you focus during the day, and guess what? When it comes night, you can't sleep, so you need something now to put you to sleep or knock you out. So that's a very, very unfortunate case of prescription drug abuse, illegal drug abuse. You just need to say no from the very beginning. Don't let that peer pressure get to you, because you're going to have peer pressure your entire life. You may have it starting now, it'll be, maybe more in middle school, high school, but you'll always have peer pressure. And you have to learn to do what you believe is right. Right now, there are more teens abusing prescription drugs than ecstasy, crystal meth, and heroin combined. So one more thing I want to talk to you about, and we'll go ahead and do a rehearsal. So you have these prescription drugs laying around your house, right? I mean, everybody has them. We always have. Maybe you had a sinus infection and you got a 30-day supply of a prescription, and after 20 days you started feeling pretty darn good and you just didn't take those last 10. Or maybe you got a prescription and you broke out in a rash, so you called the doctor the next day and you said, I can't take this prescription, can you give me something else? And now you've got 29 pills laying there. So everybody's got prescription drugs laying around the house, which is one of the reasons that we're having such a hard time combating this issue because 64% of people that abuse prescription drugs are getting them free from family and friends because they're laying around. So one of the things we probably need to do is get rid of these prescription drugs that are laying around. Okay, first of all, does anybody, and there's not a right or wrong answer to this, but does anybody in the house have their prescription drugs locked up? Lock and key. Okay, lock and key. Okay, well that's interesting. And I think you should watch this over the next couple of years because I think you're going to see more and more families locking up their prescription drugs. The answer I usually get in the classroom is the answer that I would probably guess it's not the right answer, and that's flush them down the commode. You do not, that is not environmentally correct to do that. It goes into our water supply. You shouldn't just throw them away because now you've got pill bottles with the type of medicine and your name on them in the garbage that somebody might be going through, okay? So Ohio County and some other counties in the state of West Virginia have programs called, it's a national program called Take Back Days. And you might see flyers around. November the 12th, we had one at Ohio County, City County building and up at West Liberty Fire Department, where you could take your prescription drugs that you're not going to use anymore, and you could just take them back to them. Whenever the bailiff is ready, go ahead and stand up. You can go ahead and read your line on top of page 2, real loud.
All right. This court is now in session.
Okay, so the judge will come in. The judge is coming out of their judges' chambers. We're going to ask them to go step outside. So the judge will come up here, and that's what you do. Lots of standing and sitting in the courtroom. It's out of respect, not just for the judge, but for our justice system. So the judge will say, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Always do what the judge says, okay? So tomorrow, and we're skipping down through this, so on page 2, tomorrow the judge will talk to the jurors about what this case is concerning. The judge will talk to the jurors about voir dire. You already know that. You know it's how you were picked to be a juror. And then he has 2 questions for you, okay? On the bottom of second paragraph, the judge says, therefore, I first want to know if any jurors have heard anything in the past or read anything about either Justin Wuso or Alex Wuso. And your answer is? No. No, judge. Say it like you really mean it. Come on.
No, judge.
Okay. Is each and every juror here sure they are willing to take an oath that they will give an impartial verdict based solely on the evidence?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. So we'll go ahead. The judge tomorrow will talk to you about the steps in the trial, and these are the steps in real trials. So once you learn these steps, it'll make it more interesting for you when you hear about a trial on the radio or see something on TV. So now it's time to start, and even though it sounds like the judge is speaking to the defendants, it's the lawyers that answer. You always stand when you talk to the judge, even if it's no, Your Honor, yes, Your Honor, and then you can sit back down. Okay, is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defendant Justin Wuso ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defendant Alex Wuso ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, the state may proceed with its opening statement. So state attorney, you pick up your script, come around the front of your desk, and stand in front of those jurors. This is the time in a case when the lawyer is going to say, this is what we're going to prove. So just read the first couple of lines to them today.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, in the opening statement, it is my duty to tell you what the evidence will be. I'll tell you what we will prove.
Okay, that's good enough for today. Tomorrow you'll read it all to them.
Thank you, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the evidence will be that the state cannot prove that Mr. Wuso took any of these pills in the first place and can't prove that he stole any to anyone.
Okay, that's very good. Read real loud. If you get stuck on a word, don't worry. It's an informal process. So now we have our last lawyer, defense counsel for Ms. Wuso. You may give your opening statements. Same thing. You'll bring your script over, and they wouldn't have a script in real court. They would be eyeballing you, looking you in the eye, trying to convince you. Go ahead.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Wuso is not a drug dealer. She was just trying to be one of the crowd by going along with her brother, Justin, and trying to win the case.
Okay, very good. All right, now it's time for witnesses. The state always goes first. So, the state may call its first witness.
The state calls the Ohio County coroner.
Bailiff, you'll go back and escort the Ohio County coroner, that's Dr. One, up here. Clerk, well, as soon as he starts going back, you stand up. and you just face that way, and when they come up, you're gonna raise your right hand, and you're gonna tell them, and I think you just kind of walk beside them, okay? Walk beside, you just escort them. Okay, now you ask them to raise their right hand.
Raise your right hand.
You raise yours. Good. Clerk, okay, go ahead and read your line. Do you?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, bailiff, you escort him over here into this chair. And then once the witness sits down, you can go back over there and stand next to the clerk. Okay, now it's time for you to ask this witness questions, so you can begin.
Please state your name.
My name is Dr. Shell Hayes.
You are the coroner of Ohio County,
I am.
and you did the autopsy on the body of Mr. Jeff Rock after her accident.
Yes, I did.
What was the cause of death?
Massive internal injuries of a traumatic nature as a result of her single car accident when she lost control and plunged over Wheeling Hill. Objection. It has not been established that she lost control.
Okay, that's good, except you really don't like what you just heard. And because you're jumping up and down the whole time during this trial, you have all kinds of objections. The minute you hear something you don't like, you just jump right up out of that seat. Objection. In other words, you don't want this to continue, and so the judge will rule on that, okay? Overruled.
What else did your examination disclose?
We also found that at the time of her death, she had a prescription medication in her blood, Ritalin, the amphetamine for the treatment of ADDH, the same drug that was in the pill bottle recovered from Miss Russo after the accident.
Doctor, how do amphetamines affect the body?
Okay, we're going to skip over that. Go about down a little ways, state's attorney, and say, and do you have an opinion as to, right before her objection, okay?
And do you have an opinion as to whether or not she became groggy or fell asleep when she was driving?
Objection. The doctor is not an expert in an accident reconstruction. That opinion would be highly speculative.
I'm going to sustain that objection.
Judge, we will be calling a reconstruction expert.
Very well, proceed.
No further questions.
Okay, so you could go ahead and sit down. Now you stay here. Until you always, witnesses, you always stay in this seat until the judge says you can leave this, you can leave the witness stand. So Mr. Justin Wusso's attorney may proceed.
You can't say for sure that the amphetamines caused her to drive her car over Wheeling Hill.
Okay, hold on for just a minute. You're too far away, I think. So let's have you come on up here with your script and just stand in line with the witness, and you can do that also, but don't stand too close. You always, I've had lawyers say you have to give them their space, okay? So go ahead now. You can't say for sure.
You can't say for sure that the amphetamines caused her to drive her car over Wheeling Hill. Nothing is for sure, but it is the most likely thing, unless there would be some evidence that she drove off the hillside on purpose, of which there is no evidence. Well, you can't even rule out that she might have gotten tired and fell asleep without having even taken this drug. Again, that is a possibility, but unlikely when we found the drug in her system. Most probably, it did affect her. Most probably, it was the cause of her erratic driving. No further questions.
Sworn in.
Put your right hand up. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Please state your name and occupation.
My name is Dr. Wilson, and I am the family doctor to the Russo family.
I'm going to have a vial of pills tomorrow in an evidence bag, so you'll bring the pill bottle up and you'll hand it to this witness when you ask her that question, okay?
Let me show you the vial of pills obtained in Miss Russo on the evening of May 10, 2010, when she and Justin Russo went to the hospital after they heard of the accident involving Jennifer Rock. Did you prescribe those pills, doctor?
And now you stop and take a look at that pill bottle before you answer, okay?
Yes. For whom did you prescribe them?
30 pills, they were prescribed for the younger brother of Justin and Alex, Max, who was taking them for ADDH. See, it has his name on the bottle.
How many did you prescribe for him?
30 pills, one for each day of the month.
When was his prescription filled?
It was filled on May 1st, 2010.
Okay, let's skip down. Justin's attorney, do you see that objection?
Objection. Speculation.
Overruled. Okay, you can go ahead and sit down, and you can go ahead and sit down. That is the last witness for the state attorney, okay? Then it's time for this side, the defense attorneys, to see if they have any witnesses. And we talked about this. We have one witness we have one defendant that's going to come up on the stand. So this defendant is Alex. So once she's called, you'll go back, escort Alex in front of the clerk. Alex will come and tell her story, okay? And then the state attorney will cross-examine Alex. Then that's all the witnesses. We're finished with the witnesses. So skip over to page 13, and that's the way it works in the real trial. We go through all the witnesses. Sometimes it can take a day, sometimes it can take weeks, sometimes it can take months, right? So now on page 13, we're done with all our witnesses, so it's time for closing arguments. So, very well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now hear closing arguments first on behalf of the state. Are you ready, counsel?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Couple of sentences for today.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is an open and shut case. It is unlawful in the state of West Virginia to possess or distribute a controlled substance. The prescription amphetamines are a controlled substance, unless they are possessed or distributed pursuant to a valid prescription by a medical doctor.
Okay. Now we shall hear from Ms. Wusso's counsel over on top of page 14. You'll go in front of the jury and you will read closing arguments. If this were a real case, let's say there were a bloody knife and a bloody boot or whatever, the attorney would actually get those from the clerk and can walk up and down and show you this evidence. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the only thing the state has proven, because Ms. Wusso admitted it on the stand, is that she illegally possessed a controlled substance.
Okay, that's good for today. Now it's time for Mr. Wusso. Counsel for Mr. Wusso, you may proceed with your closing argument.
Thank you, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the state has not proved beyond a reasonable doubt any charges against Ms. Wusso. Ms. Wusso is the one who had the prescription vial at the time of the police investigation.
Okay, that's good for today. Tomorrow they'll read their whole closing arguments to you. So now it would be time for the judge to instruct the jurors on the law. Look, it isn't going to do you any good to try to come up with a unanimous verdict if you don't know the law in West Virginia. So the judge would talk to you about the law. The bailiff will lead the jurors out into the hall tomorrow. I'll go with you and with the verdict form, and then we have a little bell, because if you were in this jury room, the judge would say, when you've reached a verdict, press the buzzer on the wall. So basically we have a little bell. When the bailiff hears that bell, you will bring the jurors back in. Everyone in the courtroom always stands when the jurors come and go. You come back in, the judge will ask the jury for a person to read the verdict. You will read the verdict, and then we will have time for questions and answers. And I always brag about the 4th and 5th graders' questions, because they're always great. So think of some things that you would like to ask a real lawyer tomorrow. When I come, I'll bring my suitcase full of props. I have a beautiful cape for Alex and a wizard hat for Justin. And I have the real juror badges that they use in circuit court for the jurors. I have badges for the bailiff, the clerk. I have an old court reporting machine, scarves for the female lawyers, and neckties for the male lawyers, and doctor coats. So we'll make it a little bit of fun tomorrow, okay? You can dress up. It'd be nice if you dress up, because we have a guest. These people are charged with, these defendants are charged with possession, which means did they have the pills? Distribution, which means did they give the pills away? And if they gave the pills away, that was a negligent act, so they would be charged with involuntary manslaughter. Great. So thank you. That's all I have for today.